No. Bad Netflix.
Wait a minute. I definitely feel like a second season is justified after that ending.
They're promising a universe. An entire universe.
I mean, yeah, everybody is promising a universe these days.
Roll tape.
Oh, come on. Just a couple of days ago, Netflix's CEO Ted Sarandos hinted that the streaming juggernaut's most popular original series is going to be expanding in a major way, stating, "The Squid Game universe has just begun," later clarifying that the second season of the show is absolutely in the works and that a third season might also be on the horizon. On its surface, this might seem like a relatively simple decision that will result in Netflix's continued winning streak. I mean, for what it's worth, Squid Game was a show that was streamed by approximately 142 million households and accumulated over 1.6 billion hours of view time. To put it into perspective, that's roughly 182,648 years of mankind sobbing uncontrollably over a bunch of lowlives playing marvels for literally millions of dollars. Obviously, a second season seemed inevitable, especially with that ending. However, it's something else altogether when you're promising an entire universe. And that's actually something that Netflix has been building towards for a while now. Regardless of whether anybody really wants it or not.
Zombie tiger. That's crossing the line.
For what it's worth, I'm here to tell you that a Squid Game universe is not only a bad idea, but also it might be the worst possible direction for Netflix as a whole. You know what? I feel like you're looking at this all wrong. Isn't it awesome that Netflix is trying to expand its entire catalog with highly anticipated content?
No.
But why? In order to explain where I'm coming from, we need to break down this series itself on a narrative level. At its core, Squid Game is a meditation on the growing socioeconomic plight of the lower class of South Korea, who have recently found themselves in dire financial situations and are thus chosen to compete amongst each other for the privilege of earning a life-altering amount of money. What it isn't, at least for now, is a fairy tale of revolution where one man or one group of people can make a difference in a world focused against him. Seriously, I can't be the only one who thought that despite everything, Song Gi-hun should have gotten onto that plane to see his daughter and done his best to use his newfound wealth to clear up his own life instead of turning around to take on the people who put him in that situation in the first place. Of course, if that's the case, then the entire series would probably have a less than hopeful tone, as it would subtly be implying that no matter who you are, wealth eventually corrupts you entirely. Song Gi-hun might have ran from his wealth for a very long time near the end of the series, but I would argue that an alternative, non-combative cliffhanger would have gone a long way to solidify that specific message, by allowing our protagonist to revel in his shallow victory and not fundamentally challenging the system that put him in that situation. However, Squid Game 2 or 3 or the eventual American spinoff will be continually marred by that deceptive cliffhanger, as the series eventually devolves into an underwhelming revolutionary plotline built around a series of high-stakes children's games. Or whatever might be the basis of these other competitions throughout the world. It's not overly clear based on the first season. The real point here is, what more is there left to discover? And that's actually a serious question. Besides upping the scale into a Mockingjay, Escape the Room, Tournament of Champions style narrative, this series seems destined to devolve into either a by-the-numbers plot or continually spin its own wheels by doing the same thing over and over again. If anything, any further continuation would feel like a cheap rehash of the same class struggles expertly explored in the first season, with any natural exploration after that being watered down revolutionary storyline. Look, it's not that I disagree. It just feels like that entire argument is more of a lack of creativity from the person making it than literally anything else.
Maybe. But remember, I'm just a program. These are your opinions.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, the problem is with Netflix itself more than anything.
Now, on its face, this isn't much of a problem at all. Other universes have been propping up their platforms for literally years now, despite falling into some of those same pitfalls, and we're all still talking about them. Hell, Dan McDermott, president of AMC Network, recently had this to say about the concept of niche brands driving a relatively small but passionate and growing subscription base in competition with bigger hitters. We're not all things to all people. We're more about super serving specific audiences with content that they already have a demonstrated affinity for. To use retail as an analogy, there are big box stores out there the whole family can walk into and everyone gets something for themselves. And then there are more highly curated boutiques, whether it's Nike or Lululemon or a Gucci, that's all about craftsmanship and bespoke, highly curated offerings. We're clearly in that latter category, and we think that's our advantage. We're not competing with the Netflixes and the Disney Pluses and the Amazons. They're in an arms race to find mega ginormous content that they can spend a fortune on. That's not our business. And honestly, I tend to believe where he's coming from. It's exactly why The Walking Dead can prop up AMC and AMC Plus, despite the gallons of internet ink that had been spilled saying that the franchise just simply isn't working anymore. It's also why Disney can coast off of Star Wars and Marvel content for Disney Plus, despite the entire service being not so good in my opinion. Like, I would say if you can only afford one or two streaming services, I would probably choose Netflix over Disney and then HBO Max over Netflix, you know, if it was me. Still, despite those series and their respective streaming networks, we are once again left with the question of Netflix and their expansion of the Squid Game franchise. The series itself cost around $21.4 million to make and earned the streamer approximately $900 million in revenue. Now, obviously, that's a lot of money, and surely that amount of return would almost certainly guarantee multiple seasons, movies, spin-offs, and other synergetic expansions of this brand through calendars, cups, Halloween masks, and literally anything else you can think of. But even with that being said, it is kind of worth asking, how much of that do audiences really want? And how much will it ultimately cost Netflix to learn that lesson? To answer that first question, I'd argue that Squid Game is a perfect hybrid of Netflix's cultivated identity as one of the leading providers of high-end television, and the fact that we're all still living through one of the strangest times in our collective lives with the global pandemic. Maybe it's the absurd amount of money they're spending on their programming, or the fact that they, at least at the time of recording this video, still dominate the global streaming game. But there's just something about that draws an audience to a series that might not have been made otherwise. I mean, there is definitely a reason why most people think of Cobra Kai or You as Netflix originals. Additionally, there is a reason why Tiger King made waves in early 2020, and the same could be said for late 2021 with the release of Squid Game. The vast majority of us are still home, with nothing to do except watch premium TV. And as we've already discussed, Netflix is home to high quality original programming. So basically,
it's a vicious cycle.
Still, as far as we know, the story of Squid Game Season 2 isn't planned out yet, and any continuation would need to be highly thought out with a potential team of writers tasked with cracking that story. Such an endeavor will likely take some time to get right, and then additional time will be needed to film, edit, and market the thing in order to get people's excitement back. In the meantime, audiences will likely have hundreds of other series to get obsessed with as more and more streaming services compete for our collective attention. Add all those factors to the additional cost that it would mean to produce an entire universe around Squid Game, as series creator Hyung Dong-hyuk recently confirmed that he received no major bonuses for the performance of his original series, stating, "I am not that rich, but I do have enough. I have enough to put food on the table." Yet even he believes that a bigger payday will eventually come with the expansion of his series. And that's not even to mention the amount of money that it would take to get some of the main players from the series back to the table for a second, third, fourth season, or maybe even some kind of spinoff. And we're quickly left with the fact that any continuation will likely blow past that $22 million Netflix spent on the original series. So with all of that being laid out on the table, it's not unbelievable that skyrocketing costs will bunch up against waning interest for the series as a whole, making the entire endeavor less beneficial for Netflix's bottom line. As stated before, Netflix isn't AMC Plus or another boutique streaming platform. It's a name brand that needs to drive engagement and continually boost its subscription numbers to justify its ridiculous spending. On that note, it is widely reported that Netflix has, for the last several years, decided to renew or cancel its shows based on the viewership versus cost of renewal review process, which ultimately helps them determine whether the cost of producing another season of a show is proportionate to the number of viewers that the show receives. For me, the way I read that is Netflix decides to renew its content based on whether or not a series can bring in enough subscribers to justify spending more money beyond its current contractual obligation. The harsh reality of this, of course, being the vast majority of shows just don't do that. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how good the show is. It doesn't matter how many awards it brings in or anything else. The only thing that matters is how many people subscribe to watch that show. And if that's the case, why would anyone want to get invested in a Netflix series in the first place? Especially when the prospect of further growth has begun to show signs of stalling in a major way. On Friday, January 21st, 2022, Netflix's stock price fell by a blistering 22%. Making it its steepest one-day drop since 2012. Currently, Netflix's shares are down significantly from their record high last November. And while it is possible that the dominating success of Squid Game around that time is what helped contribute to that impressive surge, it's also possible that the goodwill from that surge is what led industry expectations to skyrocket for the first quarter of 2022, as many analysts suspected that Netflix would be able to generate nearly 6.9 million subscribers within the first quarter. In fact, it was Netflix's own estimates that it would only be bringing in about 2.5 million that led to this astonishing drop in the company's stock prices, which is currently trading at around the same price as April 2020, the same time the entire country shut down for some reason. Now, even in early February, it doesn't seem like Netflix will be able to fully rebound and continue to grow in the same pace that it was growing last November. And while I'm certainly not going to sit here and try to tell you that I fully understand the inner business of streaming services or even stock market prices at any given time, I am certainly going to tell you that the last thing that Netflix wants right now is for people who do know that stuff talking about whether or not it's important for Netflix to start seriously considering selling itself to another entity in order to get itself out of its debt hole that it's currently been buying itself in for the last decade. Ultimately, the point there being is that Squid Game, for better or worse, worked as a fascinating illustration of a very real economic frustration that men, women, and children have been experiencing in droves for ever. More so in the last several years because of the whole pandemic thing, but literally just forever. But the idea that this little series might now lead to an expansive multimedia universe, definitely expanding in a few new seasons, if not a movie, a spin-off, or God forbid, a freemium mobile game, I think it begs the question, do we really need this? Does Netflix really need this? I guess under their current business model, the answer would be a resounding yes. Trying to drive engagement and bring in new subscribers with a highly anticipated second season of one of their most successful shows ever is exactly how Netflix currently sees itself dominating the streaming market for the foreseeable future. Nevertheless, I can't help but to think that any approach would be ultimately detrimental to the series as a whole, and the seeming lack of direction would ultimately lead to a directionless series of continuations, each trying to artificially up the stakes while failing to deliver the same thrills brought by the original series. In such a direction, at least from what I'm seeing right now, could ultimately lead to a false ending, as in somewhat of a plausible future, Netflix could potentially cut all ties to the series in order to relieve itself of any financial burden that it might feel because of its waning success. And if that's really a possibility here, then why are we pushing our luck? But that's just my take. You know what? You're right. I think the last thing I would want from any of this is for it to expand in such a way that's way too big and then just end abruptly.
Yeah.
But, I guess I really don't want it to drag on forever either.
That's true. Hey, do you want to watch the new episode of The Walking Dead?
Do I?
The KRW Network.
What's up, everybody? Hope everyone enjoyed that video. I hope from that video and the others that I put out like this over the last couple of months can show everyone that this whole channel, its concept has drastically changed from what it was when we first started. One of the reasons for that is Kanji is somewhat stepped away to go focus on his other channel, and it's kind of been left more up to me to, kind of fill up the gaps. And one of the reasons I wanted to keep doing this channel was I could do more videos like this, not focused on anything, not centered on any one genre or even topic, as YouTube so desperately tries to get every creator to do. It was just going to be me talking about whatever I really wanted to. That's why I have enlisted the help of our editor, MJ. Over at MJTV, you can find him in the link below. Him and I are pretty good friends, and maybe he'll put up some content. Maybe we can get Kanji over here to put up some content sometime here in the near future. But until then, I wanted to introduce everyone to the KRW Patreon. That's right. I'm starting a Patreon. Woohoo! The real reason I want to do this is I want to take all the money I get from that and put it directly back into this channel to help me kind of solidify finances and justify making more of this content, which I really like. I hope you guys like as well. You can go down to the link in the description section below, hit it, and go see what it has to offer you. And maybe if you're interested, think about it. I'm not really expecting anyone to. In fact, I know this channel's small and I don't get a whole lot of traction, but it's something I'm really passionate about, and I would really love to keep growing this channel in the way that I want to do it. And you know what? If you want to be on that ride with me, then that's fantastic. I hope everyone's having a good day. It's been real.